There is some other news that was very interesting this last week, Thorin, that we have to discuss, which is something, again, that we can only do on this show because no one else is capable really of talking about this in depth, which is that the LCK teams issued a public joint letter to the LCK, basically telling them in no uncertain terms that the business of the LCK was garbage. They were losing a bunch of money, that revenue projections from the LCK have not been met, that they were given when franchising started, and that they were very, very angry. And this is rather remarkable because we haven't seen, they said all 10 teams said that they agreed to this statement.
Then came the drama, didn't it? Then came the drama. Shall I read out the tweet, the deleted tweet now, Monte?
Yes, you could read out the Joe Marsh deleted tweet.
Our favourite punchy bag / idiot / CEO, Joe Marsh, base Joe Marsh. And by the way, even the fact that guy says base Joe Marsh, whatever, LS. Listen, you've been known to make questionable choices when it comes to men. I've told you that joke 1 million times, but it will always apply to this day. So what happened is Joe Marsh made a tweet. Now, by the way, 2 pieces of context, guys. 1, he deleted this tweet. And then 2, he deleted his whole Twitter account. So actually, if you don't understand, it's even implied this tweet's why he had to delete his whole Twitter account. So, and by the way, you'll see why. Because think about what Monte just said. This is like double lift level shit. Are you ready, guys? So you know how Monte just said the teams all collectively got together and were like, right, let's, do a show of force. Together, we'll write a letter that says, this is unacceptable. We have to do it differently. Good old Joe Marsh does a tweet. T1 LoL told the other 9 teams, we did not wish to participate in this letter. We told them we wouldn't comment publicly as to not hurt their cause. But that was before they posted it without changing the language from 10 to 9. T1 talks to LCK in private, not via public letters. Now, the reason why, by the way, guys, that is mental is 1, you have just also full-on double lift, fucking wrecked all the other people in this group because you're T1, the main crown jewel of Korean esports. And then 2, if you know how chairballs work, guys, the idea that everyone in all these orgs would just hold stand, this almost feels like I'd have to go to the different levels of the companies and the investors and find out, I wonder what they really think, though. Who would they support? Because in this particular case, I think actually just this tweet alone, you actually have low-key done a double lift. You've sort of publicly undercut the whole message. Even if you didn't agree, if the message was 10 instead of 9, if it's we're double lift. By the way, that was one of the best details of the LCS walkout that they could say. We had every player. That was actually quite compelling. That does crystallize in your mind. So what's your thoughts on this overall topic, Monty? Obviously, there's 2 parts. There's the weird tier 1 angle, and then there's the angle of what about team action against LCK? Because people will know from Arnold's tweets last year, they don't make money in the LCK. They also lose money there, and it costs a lot of money to run teams. Is why presumably they brought in the financial protections, the salary caps and the rookie contracts and these things. So what's your thoughts on either aspect, the T1 one or the overall one?
So the other thing about T1 is just because Joe Marsh said something in a knee-jerk reaction on Twitter, because we know Joe Marsh just goes on Twitter and says random shit. Yes. And he doesn't.
The Koreans might not think this at all, right?
He doesn't have a lot of foresight in his public statements. Yes. Remember him talking about oiling up owner on Discord? Remember all the random crap that he's just tweeted? He's had to delete a bunch of tweets in his time. So here's the other thing. It is possible that the Korean side of T1 did agree to this. Yep. And Joe Marsh did not know, or that something was lost in translation somewhere along the way about the message, and did he fully understand the context of the statement that went out only in Korean, right? And did he just use Google Translate to read it? And so was there something that was lost there? I don't know. But it's certainly, you cannot discount that possibility in the sequence of events. And certainly, Thorin, it seems like there was dissent at T1, because otherwise, why would he delete his tweet? And then why would he delete his whole Twitter afterwards? If he was just going to stand strong on this and he didn't fuck up at all. So we can ask, how did he fuck up? Is it because he fucked up, like you said, Thorin, because it was a show of weakness and they undermined their cause? Did he just not understand that some people in Korea did agree to this and he didn't know about it or misunderstood, or there was some issue with, like I said, something lost in translation? We don't know. It's also clear that T1 has the most to lose in this situation.
Oh, there's a tweet. Actually, I didn't see this until now, Monty. There's actually
yeah?
a tweet from Tucker, who owns T1, where this is how you know what happened, mate. Because someone said something about, are you ready? Someone replied to like a tweet about this topic and said, this doesn't look good for T1. And this is from a long-time T1 fan. And Tucker, who is at BLT on, he's the creator of Star 4 Worlds. Is this the guy, right? He just doesn't have many followers. He's a famous guy, though, right? Basically, he replied and said, while many of the points relating to LCK business are legitimate, using the T1 name in a statement we haven't approved is not okay.
I mean, Tucker may not know either.
Oh, okay, fair enough. True.
Again, if there's some divide between the T1 side, so for you, the guys who don't know, Tucker Roberts is the son of the Comcast CEO, and he's the one who runs all of the esports operations.
You replied to it. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
You actually replied to this thread. Okay.
Yeah. He is the one who, runs. He's basically Joe's boss.
It just shows you that obviously the line of communication, something's getting lost. Something's broken in this system.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows what it is? Something could have happened between the SKT side and the Comcast side, because this is a joint venture between Comcast, which is led by Tucker Roberts, and the old SKT organization that kind of formed a joint venture to run T1. So there's two different entities involved. Now, one thing that I want to point out, Thorin, and I pointed this out on the Monte and Wolf show, which is again out this week, but it's very important to note that it is a very rare situation where all of these chaebol companies, so let's go over the companies that have invested or who are operating teams within LCK, okay? So we have T1, which is part of SK Telecom, which is part of SK Group. SK Group includes SK Hynix, which is a chip manufacturer. They have like a market cap of something like $65 billion. They're one of the biggest companies in South Korea. We have KT, who's one of the biggest telecom companies. We have Hanwha, who, as we've discussed previously on this show, does Hanwha Life is their life insurance product, but they started as an explosives manufacturing company. We have Kwangdong, which is a pharmaceutical company, right? There are a lot of big organizations, huge organizations that run esports teams. And these huge organizations are bigger than Riot. Many of them are much bigger than Riot. And they run a variety of sports teams. And so I want you guys to ask yourselves, what would it take for all of these massive Korean companies in a culture that is fundamentally conflict averse to publicly create a statement against Riot? Like, by
the way, I wanted to ask you a quick thing just to shed this in. Do you think also, because to me, a significant part of this is, even though there's Riot Korea, Riot, the overall company, though, isn't actually Korean. I wondered if that's a component here, Monty, because I feel like if this was like OGN or some other thing that was tied into Kesper, there just never would be a public thing. It'd be more like Joe Marsh's. It'd be privately, maybe they discuss things or push back. The idea they've done it publicly, I agree, is like that's quite an emphatic thing for Koreans to do. Yeah, they're going out their way here. I don't think people understand. In a way, this is way more momentous than the LCS walkout. It's just it hasn't got the same fanfare with Western fans is all. Yeah.
I mean, this is much bigger because these companies are much bigger than Riot, both some of them individually and certainly collectively by like orders of magnitude, right? And this should be something, their budgets for these teams should be really not significant compared to their overall marketing budget.
If people want to know, I've just looked up. The SK company has assets worth $153 billion, guys. So just going to put that out. That's one of these companies, by the way. So just throw that out there. No biggie.
Exactly.
No biggie.
So they have cash to burn. And like you can say, okay, well, SK didn't want to do this, but there was clearly some, misconception that was happening. But a lot of these other companies, which are also fucking huge, are coming in and they're saying this is broken, which also means, by the way, that they have told Riot Korea behind the scenes about a million times that the business model is fundamentally broken. And they call them out. They say, you are not sharing the profits that are made from the successful marketing of the game that we provide. And they have the lowest revenue shares of any major region, despite the fact that they are hugely watched, right? Despite the fact that they
They won the
literally
last 2 worlds as well. Like,
they won the
it
last
should be
2
the main
worlds. They've won
region.
more worlds
Yeah.
than anybody else. They had 1 million concurrent viewers for the first day of T1 versus Gen G, guys. Compare that to LCS, which has 100,000, like literally 10% of the viewership. You know, this is kind of a disaster. And for these big companies to like put their foot down publicly and say like, this is not working for us, there has to be some massive change here. You know, this is crazy that they would do this. And I think people just don't understand the importance.
I mean, think of the analogy I
action.
gave to the LCS walk-up, Monte. To me, this implies, like, you again, think about what Monte said. This isn't just like, oh, we're making a political statement, guys, like power to the people. They're doing this because they want something, guys. And in fact, if they all 10 come out initially, actually the implication is we actually sort of, we're not boycotting you, but we're sort of holding your feet to the fact you better do something about this. Or like the implication to me is maybe they leave LCK. Like that's surely on the table after you've publicly sort of dissed the league in a way.
And you have to look at this too and say, who are the teams that have been involved? Some of these teams like T1 and KT have been involved in esports for 20 years across different games. And I have never seen them. I never saw them make these kind of statements in Brood War. You know, for StarCraft, when they were still paying a lot of money, they were happy with the results. And it took really until like Brood War dying for them to kind of finally give up on it. So, you know, this is very serious, and it's about the legacy of esports in Korea, because many of these sponsors have been the most stable sponsors for decades in Korea, and them walking out, they're not easily replaced, right? They're not easily replaced. Like Samsung hasn't come back since they sold their slot to Gen G. And they were replaced by Gen G. And I love Gen G as an org, but Gen G is not a company that makes hundreds of billions of dollars a year like Samsung is, right? So, you know, it's very huge that this is going on. And I expect, like, this isn't going to be something I think Riot can easily sweep under the rug. It's very easy for them to ignore team owners in the West, because Riot's very good at pitting them against each other, and because they know that, you know, they have a lot of power in that situation. And ultimately, Thorin, they know that the teams, because they are funded by venture capital and they're independent entities, are very dependent on Riot. Like, they need the value of that franchise slot. Whereas, like, you think SK Telecom actually gives a shit? You think KT gives a shit?
By the way, I'll give you one. Here's an angle. There's 2 things to say here. One, I also think this is way more significant because this is the region where, for example, I mean, I know T1 apparently didn't want to be in this letter, although, by the way, remember, this is the thing I want people to understand. As soon as that tweet is deleted, then someone else, even on the Western side, sort of makes it imply maybe he doesn't agree, and that just doesn't represent T1. That actually implies maybe T1 is part of the letter. Maybe it is just all 10 teams. So I wouldn't let that part, the Joe Marsh drama, distract you. It seems like essentially he wants to delete that and make it unhappen, like I imagine a lot of things in his career. But if we look at the idea that all these 10 teams want to leave, well, one, T1 is the team that just won Worlds, guys. If it's not a great system, how it works, and they're about to get world skin money, etc., that's pretty worrying. They should be the model citizen that shows you how awesome it is. You probably know this, Monty. Back in the day when there were tournaments that used to be mega scuffed and run till like 2 a.m. or have admin problems, the one player who famously would never complain is the one who won the fucking tournament, because obviously he has reasons to be biased and go, nah, it was all right, you know, and in the end we did get the game because he wants it to be legit. So if T1 wins fucking Worlds, and then they might also be like, this doesn't work, that's a big problem, guys. They just won the biggest prize. And then I'll just trade this in as well. Quite frankly, Monty, everyone will hate this angle, especially because Carmine Corp's shit, as we talked about LEC. But I'll tell you what, Monty, when I saw that off-season tournament thing where it was like Carmine Corp against T1, that first thing I thought was, bro, this is why that super team was going to be attempted in football. Because why the fuck would you waste your time playing in leagues against nobodies if essentially, like, using like boxing terminology, you're always the A side of the card. You're always bringing all the fans to the game. When I watched that game, Monty, remember, at the time, Carmine Corp was still an ERL team and T1 were the fucking world champions. Nobody should be watching that match. That should have zero interest whatsoever, Monty. It had mad, like, fans in the stadium, people on stream. It was even hyped. Like, Like, my first thought if I'm T1 there is, why do I need LCK actually? Wait a minute. Wouldn't actually, like, for me, T1, I could go and do show matches in China. I could go do show matches in America with Team Liquid and Cloud9. I could go do show matches in Europe with G2. And, like, wait a minute, mate. Like, right, you actually do need to make your offer better, mate, especially if we're bleeding money, because there's actually other ways we can do this where it has its own way of working, but not in your circuit. So I do think it's obvious to me you can't just keep doing things the way they were before. Like, I mean, I agree with you. It's momentous that these teams have all come together. It's not even like think about this, guys. Another way you could have done this if it was just about the info getting out there that LCK is broken. You could have just had a journalist, like, sources close to some teams say they're concerned about the operation of it. No, they've themselves put their name on a fucking letter and published it. And as Monte says, in Korea, that is a massive deal. You do not ever disrespect your business partners, by the way.
Yeah,
like that would be like a death sentence in Korea. Yeah. This implies to me, like I say, because I'm with you, these companies are way bigger collectively, especially. This implies to me this letter's basically telling Riot, like, get your shit together or there might not be LCK anymore. Well, that's what it says to me.
I mean, Arnold, and Genji didn't chime in on this one. I mean, why would they? Because, like, the big boys are saying things now. Like, you don't have to pile on. Sure. I don't think. But Arnold has been publicly complaining about this for years.
He's been doing the soft version of it, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's been saying, like, the economics don't work. Here are some ideas. And the economics don't work, guys. Like, they don't work. The teams don't get cuts of skin sales in spite of selling the skins. And by the way, Thorin, I think this is also why Joe Marsh said what he did. I think you hit the nail on the head. Joe Marsh is waiting for those world skins to come in. That is millions and millions of dollars in T1's pocket once they release those world skins. And here's another prediction I have for you, Thorin. You know how they announced that Hall of Legends thing?
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean for the players?
Yeah.
They will have Faker be the first inductee.
Okay.
Because even though it's silly to have a Hall of Legends where you have an active player, like a Hall of Fame where you have an active player. Yep. But the reason why they will do this, Thorin, is because they want to make an epic Faker skin, an Ahri skin, because Faker's already teased that the Ahri skin might be coming next year.
By the way, I will say, you know what, even though normally, Monty, that is actually risible, because think about this, guys. He hadn't won Worlds since 2016. Like, nobody can predict they'll win again. But I will say, if you've won 4 times, then you're like, actually, you know what? I'll do the Ahri skin next time. That is pretty Chad. I can't lie. That was pretty baller. I can't lie.
It was, but I think what this actually means is that he knows he's getting inducted into the Hall of Legends.
He's getting double dipped. Right, okay.
And he's going to get the Ahri skin. And why they will do this, Thorin.
If you made like a Hall of Fame edition Ahri skin fit, I feel like that is surely that's like you'd print money at that point in time, surely.
So I'm sure T1 wants that money. And here's the reason why I think they will do it before Faker retires, Thorin. Because
here's another prediction. I predict when that skin comes out, magically Ahri will get buffed. That's just listen, one of those crazy conspiracy things. I feel like it'll get buffed. One, who knows, right?
So when we talk about this, why Riot will do this, why they will allow players to be in before they retire, is because it's a business decision. They will sell more skins if Faker is still an active player. Because think about it this way. If we wait till Faker retires and then his Ahri skin comes out, I don't know, a year later, the people who watched Faker are all going to, they'll go buy that skin. But if Faker's not actively playing, then kind of the memory goes away. New players may not have ever watched Faker. So you want to strike while the iron is hot and while he's still playing. Objectively, from a business sense, I am 1000% confident you will sell more of these skins, which is exactly why Riot will not wait until Faker retires to release this Ahri skin. That's my prediction, guys. Book it. And this is why Joe Marsh doesn't want T1 on this letter, because he knows he's got his World Championship skins coming. He's got the fucking Faker mega skin coming. And this is all money that's going to go to T1, because T1 isn't going to be mad about the business, because the only way to make the esports business work in League of Legends is to win Worlds, guys, because that is the only time you get a cut of the skins. That's the only time. So, of course, the business model is working for T1. No wonder he didn't want to be part of this letter. Like it's so
in that case,
transparent.
the joke is it is even better as an analogy to Doublelift, because the real reason, guys, spoiler, why Doublelift didn't care about the walkout is he gets paid a fucking king's ransom. He wants the league to happen so he can get his money. Like, he might have pretended he cared about NS. He didn't really. He cared mainly about himself. So in the same way, the joke is, like, the main person you'd need for the actual community action, if they actually benefit themselves, they obviously have a conflict of interest, don't they? So they have a reason to potentially actually go against you like this. And the joke about this is, even though he's deleted it, he has already publicly, at least in the West, undercut the message, because now he's like the seed of doubt, whereas you were supposed to believe they were all in unison and it was just a collective action, weren't you?
Yeah, and also, guys, yes, it's true that all of the teams in LCKs do get a cut of the skin revenue, but guess who gets most of it? Come on, use your brains. Like, T1's going to get the a lion's share cut of this skin revenue, and the players get some too. I know this from talking to players. The players do get some of this. So, yeah, and this same story is playing out absolutely everywhere in esports right now, and especially within League of Legends. But the thing is that all of the teams in the West don't have the leverage that the LCK teams do to write this letter. Because, like I said, the companies that exist in Western League of Legends need the value of the franchise slots to justify the valuation of their organization. They need this. So they are not going to do anything that jeopardizes this, because even if they're not making money, they don't want to lose control of an asset or be kicked out or like boycott the league and potentially, get it removed. So anyway, this is very interesting. I'm curious if this will ever pop up publicly again, or if Riot's going to be able to kind of deal with this internally. But you should be aware that this is going on and that this is the canary in the coal mine of the esports business failure. This is it.
By the way, you've just made me realize I did a tweet along these lines, because you just made me think, wait a minute, you're right. If you don't have the slots, actually, the org's worth not much. So my tweet was, hey, at Forbes, can I get an update on TSM's valuation? Because TSM has nothing, guys. Like, how could the company actually be valued at anything at this point? They don't have League of Legends, Valorant, fucking Dota. They have a shit CS team. That's about it. Like, they have nothing. Yeah, they have fuck all. And by the way, that's also why you can't do it in the West, Monte. The joke is, instead of this happening in the West, people like TSM just left. Like, the people like TSM would have been the number one people to do this. Like, it would be TSM in America, and G2 in Europe, and Cloud9 and Fnatic as well, of course, But like, these are the teams that would have to do it. And the joke is, in the West, they don't have anywhere close to that leverage. So they did just exit the game instead. Like, that was the alternative.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.